Should the Dallas Cowboys consider moving Micah Parsons back to off-the-ball linebacker now that Leighton Vander Esch is out? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on
Cowboys.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, we're still licking our wounds a little bit from the Cowboys' Week 5 loss to the 49ers. But we've got some Twitter questions today that maybe will cheer us up a little bit.
Probably not, though.
Probably not. All right. So we've got like 17 different people asking, should the Cowboys move Micah Parsons to linebacker now that Leighton Vander Esch is out? The official word from the team is that Vander Esch suffered a neck injury. Seems likely that he's going to go on the injured reserve list. We saw a report from Calvin Watkins that said he could be out 4 to 6 weeks. I just get the feeling this is going to be something that's a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
What do you do here?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's what they want to do. It sounds like they're planning on having Micah play a little bit more linebacker. I think it makes some sense, in the sense that it's the best chance you have at getting any kind of decent linebacker play. I think if given their druthers, they would prefer to, have a quality, street linebacker or maybe make a trade there. And maybe they do anyways. Maybe they still sign a veteran and they play Micah more at linebacker. But I just don't know that there's anyone that is on the street that's necessarily going to make the kind of positive impact that you need at the position the way that Micah could if he was put back there. Obviously, that takes away from your ability to rush the passer with Micah all the time. But I think that, you should be able to find ways to kind of still give him plenty of snaps as a pass rusher. You still have lots of depth there. So, it's a plan to try to leverage your pass rush depth to help you at linebacker. Is there a sacrifice? Is there a setback to the pass rush because of this? That will remain to be seen.
Yes. When you don't have Parsons rushing the passer, it's going to hurt. However, there's still going to be, I have no doubt that Parsons is still going to get 25 to 30 rushes a game.
He's going to still get his rushes. I have no doubt. In fact, if anything, I imagine that this is going to put a lot more load on Parsons. I just think he's probably going to play more snaps than he previously did. Maybe you reduce the number of pass rush snaps by 5 or 6, and then he plays 10 to 15 more linebacker snaps.
Yeah.
Maybe more. So I think that is likely to happen. I don't know how much I love it, but I also totally understand why they feel like they need to do that based on the situation that they're in.
So a couple of things here before we even talk about Parsons to linebacker. They've just kind of been decimated at this position already with the Vander Esch injury. You lost your 3rd round rookie in preseason in DeMarvio Overshown. That hurts. You also lost Devin Harper, who was your linebacker 3, linebacker 4. You tried to sneak him onto the practice squad. You lost him to the Bengals. You cut Jabril Cox in before the season started. Didn't think he was going to make the teams, or didn't believe he was good enough to make the team. Maybe try to sneak him on the practice squad. He got gobbled up by Washington. That's 4 linebackers that you've lost now in the last month and a half. It's hard to come back from that. On the roster right now, Damone Clark, you're just going to see a big uptick in snaps from him. Malik Jefferson, going to be signed to the active roster. I can almost bet that. You've got Marquise Bell as kind of this hybrid safety linebacker. I think if the Cowboys make a move for a veteran, whether it's a signing or a trade, it's not to get a starting caliber linebacker because number one,
I mean,
teams aren't
there's not
trading
one
away
available.
those guys.
Yeah.
You're getting somebody who can basically fill that number 3 or number 4 spot, probably a depth, special teamer on some other team. But like, if you're thinking you're going to go out and get Bobby Wagner or something like that, like that's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Wagner's not available right now.
No.
Yeah, it's you're filling holes. I mean, you're not improving the spot. You're not getting better at linebacker this week. It's filling holes, unfortunately.
And maybe something happens over the next 2 weeks, when we get a little bit closer to the deadline and some of these teams start to, fall off a little bit, maybe like Minnesota, who, now that they lost Justin Jefferson, maybe they'd be open to trading a linebacker. But even then, Cowboys honestly don't have a lot of capital to give up. Like they're not going to give up a top 100 pick for a rental linebacker. And they've kind of traded away all their other like late assets because of the Trey Lance move, the Jonathan Hankins move, trading up for Eric Scott. They kind of just have to roll with who you have right now.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of the situation is the Cowboys have emptied out their available trade kind of powder. Their powder is not dry as far as trade capital goes. So they and for a team that we're not exactly sure what the future holds. I don't know if you want to start handing out 4th or higher round grade draft picks. So
no, you should
yeah,
not for a linebacker at least. Not for a linebacker.
No. And so I think the Cowboys are basically kind of in a situation where they're going to have to make do with what's available and what they've got on their roster.
And we should also mention, like, the Cowboys really like Overshawn quite a bit. They drafted him in the 3rd round. He looked awesome in the preseason. So they know, like, or at least the hope is that Damone Clark and Overshawn are your future at the linebacker position. Leighton Vander Esch still has a year left on his deal. We'll get to that when we get there. But I don't think you want to trade away a 3rd round pick to just add another body for a year. We'll see. The Cowboys clearly like Malik Jefferson. Now, he struggled a little bit in this game, but I think he's going to see an increase in snaps. And you mentioned with Parsons, like, I just think there's a chance now he plays 90% of the snaps in any given game.
Yeah. I mean, I just, it's he's going to get less rest because he's going to have to, play more linebacker, and his off time up from defensive line is going to be not on the bench, but probably off the ball.
Which we saw in Tampa Bay last year. Like the Cowboys they've done this. Like this isn't anything super new to them. They did this in the playoff game last year, and it worked pretty well, to be honest.
Yeah, my concern is the long term of it. Right, is that now you're playing 10 plus games of that kind of snap count. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. He's a young player though, so it'll be interesting to see how he handles it.
All right, Landon, let's talk about the wide receivers a little bit, specifically Michael Gallup and Jalen Tolbert next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fastest and the easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals and all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the work out of buying tickets. I was actually looking at Game Time today because I'm thinking about going to watch Giants Bills on Sunday Night Football this week, because why not? Why not? If you can go watch Daniel Jones get sacked 11 times, it seems like a good opportunity, especially when the tickets are this cheap. I love on the Game Time app that it shows you exactly how much you're going to pay, including the taxes and fees, and you know exactly what your seats are going to look like. There's no surprises at all. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to let you know that football season is here, and Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On NFL Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Hosts Tanisha Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, and your betting angles. and so much more. Plus, get in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Leighton, let's talk a little bit about Michael Gallup. There was several questions, including one from Luke, who said, do you think we should see more of Jalen Tolbert with Michael Gallup struggling?
I mean, certainly think you can't help. I mean, I think, the question is whether Tolbert is actually going to be able to produce more than Gallup. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I mean, I think that they're probably on similar playing fields at this point, but it would be good to get Tolbert opportunities and get him more reps out there because there's more upside. You feel like there's room to grow.
I just think the trajectories are going in different ways right now.
Yeah, sure. I think that's fair. I just don't know that Tolbert's immediately going to come in and provide, better play than Gallup. But I think as far as the idea of like, let's get some guys, that have some ceiling on the field so that they can improve. That makes a lot of sense. And just gives you an opportunity for a guy that has a little bit of a different skill set than Gallup, some opportunities to get on the field. I mean, honestly, anything to kind of, mix it up a little bit in this offense, I think would be welcome.
So, all right, just off the top, because I always have to do this. Dak Prescott did not play well on Sunday. He didn't. I mean, no matter what you say, he struggled. But the interception that he threw to Michael Gallup was not his fault at all. There was a blitz by the 49ers. Dak read it perfectly. His feet were set. He threw the ball where it needed to go. It was the right read. It was the right throw. And Michael Gallup let a much smaller cornerback cross his face and make a play on the football. If you're Michael Gallup and you're not somebody who's creating separation on a consistent basis, you're not providing big plays down the field, you can't let a defender outmuscle you. Like that, it's just one of those things. Like, and I hate to compare him to Michael Irvin, but there's no way that Michael Irvin would ever let that ball get intercepted. If you can't do that, I don't know how Dak can trust you at all on any route.
Yeah, I mean, you can't let the corner cross your face, on a slant. Like that's just kind of basic slant running 101. I think for Tolbert, like, I think you'll see that as well, but I think it's for different reasons, right? Where like, Gallup has no excuse. He's been a vet for several years. Tolbert, he's still learning. So you'll probably get some of the same stuff, but for different reasons.
I mean, we're in year 6 for Michael Gallup now.
Yeah. No doubt. Hey, listen, no doubt. There's no excuse there. So I think it's more just kind of these guys are probably at similar playing fields at this point. But the difference is that where they're headed, right? And so that's why you probably put Tolbert out there to try to accelerate that increase, that incline to where he's going. And for Gallup, maybe. A good portion of the problem with Gallup is that, we're forcing 9 balls down the field on 3rd and, whatever to try to, and that's like our downfield attack to him. It's like, so yeah, if it's going to mean less of these kind of throwaway 50-50 ball 3rd down calls, then let's kick.
But I don't even feel like this wasn't even like a 50-50 ball. Like that's exactly the type of
no, that wasn't. You're right. The interception was absolutely Gallup's fault. 1,000%. That's it. Like you can't let a cornerback cross your face. I guess what I'm saying is that if having Gallup on the field is like forcing you to feel like you need to call these 50-50, that wasn't the case. But in other situations, these 50-50 down the field, then like get him off the field because that's just not a good play call right now. And if that's your example of attacking down the field, then we've got problems.
And the other problem that we have here, and again, we've got several people asking this question, including Shane. He wants to know, why isn't Brandon Cooks more involved? We talked about this last week. We said the reason that you go out and get Brandon Cooks is for a game like this. We're going into week 6 and Brandon Cooks has 77 yards on the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Brandon Cooks getting open a ton. I think that part of it is when there are times when he's open and Dak doesn't see him, and some of that is Dak's fault. Some of it is that it takes a while for Cooks to get open down the. I mean, just because it takes a while for any receiver to get
Yeah.
open down the field, you have to develop the play, and Dak didn't have a ton of time throughout the night. But again, like it feels like we should be seeing more opportunities to scheme guys open like Cooks, and that isn't happening. Like the kind of designed plays that are going to Cooks are like reverse to him, and like we're not seeing any kind of daggers or dig routes inside, or anything that's like having him break inside where he can catch the ball on the run. It's all like just 9 routes and stop routes, and and it's just. I think the problem is that it looks like the offense looks exactly the same, except they've just added Brandon Cooks, and they're not like actually running any plays to try to get him open or try to free him up any more than anybody else. And so what he's basically come down to is, for the first few games, he was this guy who was stretching the defense vertically, but then offense is just basically, defense has basically stopped, paying attention to that and just kind of focused on playing down in front of them. And if the Cowboys can't find a way to get the ball out to them, part of the issue I have with what happened with San Francisco is that, the Cowboys talked about trying to attack San Francisco downfield, and then they went like, 4 of their first like 8 plays were shots down the field that were terrible. And then they just gave up after that, it's like, I think that, that they clearly have not found any consistency with attacking down the field, despite having CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Gallup. And that's frustrating, because those are guys that have shown the ability to make plays down the field. And, look, even when they try, the first play of the game, I see people trashing Schoonmaker, and I totally understand, he hasn't had great numbers, but you see him get up the field on a corner route on the very first play of the game, and Dak misses him by like 6 yards high. So it's like, it's not always just like, guys getting open that are the issue. It's the kind of trying to triangulate the problem between Dak missing the receiver not getting open, and Dak not having enough time to get to the receiver when he's open.
Everything just feels so clunky about this offense right now. Like there's nothing smooth. It doesn't feel like there's anything they can rely on or hang their hats on at all, right? Like it's such a struggle right now for them to even put it together a first down. Like we saw in the first half, like it was a win when the Cowboys could get a first down. And that's just, you can't do that. And I know they've played some good defenses, including the Jets and the 49ers, and even the Patriots had a good defense before some of the injuries, but it shouldn't look this hard. And I do wonder, like, if the Cowboys come out and they struggle on offense again against the Chargers, I think these wide receivers are going to be furious during the bye. Brandon Cooks is off to the worst start of his career. CeeDee Lamb has 4 catches in each of the last 3 games. I think 16 total targets in the last 3 games. Michael Gallup has 3 games now where he has 15 or fewer yards. Like nothing in this offense looks crisp.
Yeah, and look, we can talk about the play callers too all we want, but I'm here to tell you, like, Dak has got a problem with his accuracy early in games, and this has become an issue for 2 years now at least, where Dak is too hyped for these big games, and he throws hot on a lot of these routes early, and it's fine to say that he settles down and that he gets into the rhythm of the game, and then he ends up having a big game. But in situations like this, it's not. Like you're playing. You can't get down. You're playing an incredible defense that also happens to have a great offense, and you can't just give away a quarter of your offensive drives. Like that's basically what the Cowboys did. It doesn't really matter how many interceptions they threw. They gave a quarter's worth of drives away to San Francisco because they couldn't, complete a simple pass. They had guys getting open, and Dak couldn't get them the football. And it's just, this is my main frustration with the way Dak is playing right now in general, is that, well, there's 2 things now. That is that I feel like we need crisp Dak early in these games, or the whole offensive game script gets thrown off if they get behind. And that's not just the defense's fault at some point, right? And then we have to, and more important than us having to, Dak needs to accept that he is not the athlete that he was
That's the
previous
biggest
to
one
the
for
injury,
me, honestly.
and that he cannot. He's got to find another way to produce off script, because the way he's trying to produce off script since the injury is not working anymore. And an aspect of his game that was a positive when he was younger has now turned into a net negative. And when you can't run your scripted plays properly and you can't run off script plays off properly, you have no chance to beat a good defense that has an offense that's going to put pressure on your offense to score.
All right, Lane, let's answer one more Twitter question, including, are the Cowboys building their team the wrong way? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including the spread, player props, over-unders, and so much more. I've been telling you guys that I love futures bets. You can bet on like the Cowboys win total, which I believe is 10.5 right now on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, Landon, our last question here comes from Carter, and this is a really good one. He says, the Cowboys feel like a team that is built to play with a lead over the last few years. Yes, that's correct. But they don't seem resilient when the game script goes against them early. Is that a roster issue or a scheme issue? And should they look to build themselves differently?
I don't think it's a roster issue, because we've seen this same group of players be very good in 2-minute and comeback situations before. Dak has been very good in these situations. I don't know that it's a scheme thing either, because I just don't know like how a scheme like I just don't think that that's a thing that can limit you from being a good comeback team. Like we've seen good West Coast teams. I mean, I just think that this team isn't good at it. Like I think that they're pressing too much. And then when I think the problem is that the situation with the offense is already so tight windowed at times that when they have to play tight and things tighten up even more when they're behind, and Dak's going to push the ball and be aggressive with it, they take too many chances. And when you can't rely necessarily on your wide receivers to convert tough situations or contested catches on a regular basis, you can't rely on your, as you said, wide receiver to beat the cornerback to the spot, and you can't rely on your tight end or whoever to come down with the ball when they put it in their hands. Then it becomes more and more difficult. And listen, playing from behind is not easy when you're playing against a very, very good team. I think the Cowboys have shown you that, right?
Well, and like the 49ers one is different, because the 49ers, they're like the Cowboys, in which once they get a lead on you, it's almost impossible to come back against them, especially with their ground attack. Like they're just so good. But like when you play the Cardinals and you get behind 9-0 or whatever, like you shouldn't let things just snowball from that point. Like you've got to have a little bit of mental toughness to be like, okay, just play our game and we'll be fine. But it seems like the Cowboys go the other way and they just start to press on both sides of the ball.
Well, I mean, again, yeah, the Cardinals, they were missing 3 offensive linemen, and so when they got down, it became very easy to drop 8 and pressure the Cowboys with 3 guys if they needed to.
Right,
but
I can excuse the offense a little bit more in that one. The defense is the one that really bothers me in that game, because it feels, yes, you had a bad couple drives to start the game, but you're so much more talented than this Cardinals team. And then it just felt like they were so off balance. They didn't know what to do. And I think the Cardinals had 4 or 5 more scoring drives the rest of that game.
Look, I mean, as pissed as everyone is at Dak and the offense, I mean, the people that you guys should be the most mad at is the pass rush. That's what's supposed to be the best part of this team. And they went against an offensive line that, that was the weakness of the San Francisco team. The way to win that game was to pressure Brock Purdy. and they absolutely did nothing.
No.
You know, and you can point to Trent Williams. He's one of 5 guys, and the Cowboys have 3 to 4 guys that you are, hoping to be Pro Bowl type performances as far as pass rush goes.
Yeah.
And you got nothing. So, I mean, I think as far as like, concerns about, whether the roster is the scheme, I mean, you need your good players to play better football. I think let's start there.
I think
when you're behind, you need your superstars to play above and beyond in order to come back. And I just feel like we haven't seen that. Especially, we haven't seen it at all on the offensive side of the ball, but we're used to seeing it on the defensive side of the ball, and we didn't even see that last week.
I believe the defensive ends total, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Sam Williams, Fowler, Armstrong combined for 4 pressures on Sunday.
That's
You're
why
not going to win.
There you go. That's how you lose.
Yeah.
If you got a pressure-based defense and you can't get pressure, guess what? Brock Purdy's going to be able to sit back there and deal, and that's what he did. That's the funny thing, is that we went into this game so nervous about the Cowboys being unable to stop the run. That wasn't a problem.
No,
or that wasn't
the
problem. That's for sure. The problem was that Brock Purdy had all day to throw the ball to whoever he wanted, and that was not an outcome that I think many of us expected.
And even when he was pressured, he was able to step up in the pocket and make throws. The Cowboys quarterback for this game just didn't do that. There was a couple plays in this game where the pocket's actually pretty clean. And I was thinking of, there was the 3rd down play that Dak took the sack. Fred Warner got the sack on the left-hand side. Terrence Steele and Tyron both buried their guys on the edge, and there was a clean pocket in the middle. Instead of stepping up and, trying to make a play that way, Dak drifted back in the pocket to his left. And he couldn't even throw the ball away because there was a guy right into his face. If he just steps up, there's probably somebody open in the middle of the field. Maybe you don't even get the first down, but at least you're not taking a 10-yard sack and now you're punting the ball from your end zone. It's just those little things they've got to clean up if they want to get back on track.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
I mean, it's a lot, but they got to do it, honestly.
Yeah. All right, that is it for today's show. As you can tell, we're very, very excited and optimistic about this team. One of the more depressing shows we've done in a while.
Sorry, guys.
That's all right. We'll get back. This is a big game on Monday. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, especially with the Cowboys going into a bye, it's a pretty big one for Dallas. Make sure that you're checking out the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Check out the show on YouTube. Go follow Landon on Twitter @McCoolBCB. I'm @Marcus_Mosier, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.